Thank you so much for joining us today for the message. As always, I want to encourage you to make sure that you are planted in a local church wherever you live so that you are able to serve and worship together with others. But we do pray that our church is a great resource to you and many others. And if our church has been a blessing to you, I would encourage you to join us in financially giving so that we can continue to provide resources just like today's message, as well as many other things abroad. Thank you again. God bless.
Today with Orphan Sunday, I know that some of you are brand new and you're like, well, what's Orphan Sunday? Every year, it's good to explain that. Orphan Sunday is a Sunday in the year that's given where highlighting those who have no home or they're not with their biological parents. There's over 50 million children throughout the world who are orphaned. And so when you throw a number like 50 plus million and climbing, then a lot of us go, well, there's nothing I can do about that. And the answer is there's absolutely something you can do about that. It's just, I know that the number is staggering, and so therefore you kind of shut it all off, and you're like, man, I wish I could, but I can't change all of their lives. The point of the matter is as followers of Jesus, it is not a matter of changing every single child's life. It is a matter of doing good where you can. It is a matter of doing justice where you can, loving kindness, and acting on behalf of the Lord Jesus Christ here on earth. As we talk through this morning, it's a little bit different. For 12 years now, we've had Orphan Sunday. For 12 years, we've planted seeds in the hearts of families and minds. For a lot of people who would have never in a million years saw themselves thinking about fostering or thinking about helping those who are fostering or opening up their homes and their lives. And yet, as you're going to see today, there are many families in the church today here that we are engaging with that have children that have been adopted, have been welcomed into their home, have absolutely been loved and called their own. And so that really is what today is about when we talk about these things. Today we're going to really focus on what we can do. It's not just to bring awareness, it's also to show action. Like, what are some of the actionable steps? One of the things that we have in the very back, and I'm going to highlight them again at the end of the service, and I'm encouraging you, before you leave, there's two places you've got to visit. Giving Tree and the table in the back. We're going to have Shreveport Pregnancy Center is here with Jennifer and one of her associates, and we're going to have an opportunity for you to go and to talk to them. They are a newer ministry here, but they're on our side of town. They're very similar to Care Pregnancy Center in the sense of the way that they help women who are in very difficult situations with unplanned pregnancies and helping them to make a godly decision, helping them to make a decision for not only life, but also to thrive in that. Not just to hand out things, but rather to help them and equip them with how to live. And so it's an amazing process, an amazing program that they're doing. And so I'm encouraging you, make sure to go over there and say, hey, what all do you do? What all do you offer? What's your website? You know, how could I potentially help? They are looking for people who are willing to volunteer, even if it's just 2 hours in the week, but willing to come, some people to counsel. I mean, a lot of times there's people who just need someone to hear them out and to give them godly counsel. There's all kinds of different opportunities, so I want to make sure you go there. Jill is going to be representing CASA this morning at the table. She has been a CASA, a court-appointed special advocate now for the last couple of years, and she's going to be at the table as well in between the services and afterwards as well. This is a great opportunity for some of you saying, well, how can I help some of these kids who are in our area? Some of the children in foster care, but maybe I'm not able to foster right now or something of that nature, but how could I help them? Well, you can be an advocate for them. You can show up and meet them where they're at. You can go when they have court dates to make sure that there's someone in there that knows about their situation beyond the judge and beyond the foster parent, like someone on the outside looking in and saying, hey, this is what I believe is the best interest for the child. I've been engaging with them. I know what they're going through. Again, I want to encourage you with that. And then Brian and Heather Simmons, which they're going to be the highlight today of the service as the family that we have on video. But go and talk to them when this is over to ask them about fostering. What does that journey look like? What does it look like to adopt? You know, what is some of those things? And even if you're just like, I don't have a clue about any of this stuff, just go and ask them, being like, hey, how did you even get started? Again, the main thing about today is we're going to bring awareness, but that is not enough. We're going to bring contemplation, but that is only the start. The point of today is that there would be actionable steps wherever you're at, whatever season of life that you find yourself in. It says this in Micah 6:8, he has told you, O man, what is good, And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love kindness and to walk humbly before or with your God? Notice the word there, do justice. It doesn't just say contemplate justice. It doesn't just say we hope that you think about it for a very long period of time. No, it's do justice. Love kindness, but it doesn't just say love justice or like justice, right? There's a lot of people who are like, well, we want the justice to happen, but we don't want to do anything about that. No, do justice, just as we're going to talk about today, as Boaz did. Do what is good, what is right. And so I'm going to move this out of the way, and we're going to start our video this morning, but I want you to see that when we talk about Orphan Sunday, it's not something that's way out there. It's not something that we just shut off. This is families inside of our own church. This is families that we're engaging with on a regular basis, opening their worlds, opening their lives to make a difference. And this is honestly where I see some of you in the next year, 2 years, because taking the next step of obedience may look very much like this video. What's going on, guys? Thank y'all so much for allowing us to come into your home and a chance to get to talk about Orphan Sunday and your fostering journey, as well as which led to adoption, which is really amazing. If you will, just let them know who you are and just a little bit about you.
Hello, I'm Brian Simmons. I work at the railroad. This is my wife, Heather Simmons.
Hey, we've been coming to fellowship for probably 6 years now. We have 3 kids. We have 2 boys and a little girl. Our oldest is almost 14, a 10-year-old and a 3-year-old. We are always on the go. If you see us, we're probably just waving as we go by. They keep us pretty busy. We're always at some kind of ball field.
So what got you guys into fostering? What brought about the idea to do this?
Yeah, so it had always kind of been in the back of my mind that I would love to do it, but didn't think that was something that we could ever really do or accomplish. And it actually was 2020. I think it was 2020 or 2021 when we did it at church. And it came across where it just wouldn't leave my mind. It was waking me up out of my sleep. It was, I just heard it in the back of my head. He had no idea that I was even having these thoughts.
Oh,
Was that a surprise to you?
it actually came through from her on a text message.
I was literally driving to work, and it was just, the Lord was so loud that I was like, I have to just ask him right now. So I shot him a text. I said,
Wow.
Hey, I have a crazy idea. I think we need to look into fostering. And I thought he was going to be like, you have lost your mind. We are too busy. We've got too much on our plate as it is. But he was like, okay, if that's what you want to do, we'll pray about it. Text Erica and get some information. And I got to work, text Erica that day. She sent me all the numbers that I needed. On my lunch break, I called the numbers, and it literally was just, it started rolling right after that. We got our classes set up months after that. Ours did run into COVID, so we did everything, like FaceTime and Zooms and things like that for our meetings. But yeah, it really just came about just because the Lord was just like, you're going to do this whether you want to do it or not.
And I believe that's why it was easy, because we were doing it for the right reason, not just this or that or whatever, everything came to us out front. It was
Yeah, just
simple.
Yeah, everything. The classes lined up with the nights that we could do them, there was only certain nights that we could get classes in. That worked out. It was just everything just fell in place, which was confirmation that we were doing the right thing.
That's so awesome. So after you were trained and had your home study completed, which is part of the process y'all were mentioning training, how long did it take for you to get a placement, and what was that like?
I think it was about 6 months.
6 months.
We got a little boy placement first. He actually, the day he got released from the hospital is the day that we brought him into.
Oh, wow. Brand new.
Brand new from the hospital. We were excited, scared, nervous. We knew we had already, talked to our kids about this and prayed with them about it and, explained what was going to happen, but we were nervous that once we started the process and we brought the child into our home, they were going to be like, I don't know about this, Mom, or,
Right.
We're bringing an infant in, there's not going to be sleep, there's, all the things. So we were nervous, to bring him here. Once we got him here, We fell in love with him. He was the sweetest little baby. The boys loved him. It was a lot of sleepless nights. We went back.
Starting over.
We started over with that one. But it went well. We kept him for about a month, and he actually went back to his parents, whom we still see and talk to
Oh, wow. So
almost every day.
you developed a good relationship with them, and that
Absolutely.
still is today?
They come to all the birthday parties. We go to his birthday parties.
Now, that's so good. That's so good. Okay, now, some people might not have known about that, but many people who do obviously know you or have been engaged with you know about sweet Mila.
Yeah.
So when did she come into your world, roundabout, you should probably guess know the date, but roundabout date?
It was August the 8th, 2021.
Mm-hmm.
She was 2 years old.
Yeah. Well, she was 14 months. Yep.
Very close.
Yeah. But yeah, she had actually just turned 1. She was 14 months old when we got her.
Now, so how was the adjustment bringing Mila into your family? And for each of you individually, I mean, you just mentioned a little bit about the young boy, and that was sleepless nights because he was, brand new. Mila was 14 months old when she came in. But for each of y'all, individually, as well as for the boys.
Definitely a scary moment because they said it's a girl placement this time. I was like, what are we doing?
What was it?
I had 2 boys. I knew what I was doing with them, but girl, it worked out really good though. Again, everything has worked out perfect. I mean,
Yeah, they brought her to us here, and she was the sweetest little thing. I still remember the day they brought her in. She was in her pink little overalls with her little hair and pigtails, scared to death because she didn't know who we were and looking at us like, you're not my mama, and so it was emotional for her. She was scared. We were scared. But we just hugged her and we prayed over her. The boys got to play in with her and, got her comfortable. I can remember that night getting her ready for bed for her first time. She was just staring at us, like she didn't know who we were, it's just in this new place with these new faces. And I can just remember that look on her face, and it just broke my heart. But she warmed up fast.
I was going to ask that is, did it take, a couple of weeks, a couple of months to really begin to, earn her trust, even at 14 months?
It did, actually. For the first few days, she really wouldn't speak. She wouldn't, really motion for anything, talk to us about anything. She was just almost, I don't want to say in a state of shock, but she just didn't understand what was going on.
That sounds right.
She didn't know where she was sleeping. She didn't know where she was bathing. She didn't know us. And so it did. I feel like it took a good week to 2 weeks before she kind of was like, oh, okay, these people are consistent. I'm seeing them every day. They're feeding me. They're, clothing me. And so then she really started to become comfortable.
Yeah. And I mean, every situation's a little bit different, but I think maybe for some of the people who are watching this right now, maybe don't realize that, how much neglect occurs, whether it be simply physical, caring and loving, but also too, food and basic necessities that, so many of the children who are in the foster care system are coming from really bad situations. So definitely can see how that would happen. Now, you were fostering Miss Mila for right at 2 years, right? And during that period of time, what would you say were some of maybe the more trying moments as well as the also very rewarding moments? I mean,
yeah, I think probably some trying moments were just rearranging our schedules. We had everything running pretty smoothly. He got off at 2 every day, so he was able to pick the kids up and, get them home. And I still worked till almost 6 then, so I was getting home late. So that was a transition of just him having to get 3 kids now, pick up from daycare, learn how to take a toddler to baseball games now and football games.
Yeah.
So it was an adjustment with that, but it was so rewarding.
At their age, them being self-sufficient, I mean,
Yeah.
it was, again, starting over, and that was probably the hardest part of everything, all the way from diapers to bottles to, I mean, you just start over in one day, like, so you're not prepared for what age you're gonna get, but it just worked out. It was perfect. So
Yeah, and seeing the boys with her, I think has been the biggest blessing to me. That was our biggest question from people was always, well, what about your kids? How is it going to interrupt their life? Is it going to take you away from them? That was always a question people asked us. And I just told them, I was like, my children have accepted these babies so unbelievably good. They would help bathe, they would help feed, they would play, they would pray over them with us. Like, they have been so good with them. And so that to me has been the biggest blessing, seeing them grow in this community and learning what this is all about.
So tell me, something incredible happened in the last couple of months. And if y'all can, tell us a little bit about, so you can bring everyone up to date who's watching this.
Yes, so we, on August 1st of 2024, we were able to officially adopt Mila. So she is officially Mila Rose Simmons, or in her, she says Mila Simmons Rose.
Right.
But she is.
She's particular, right?
Yeah.
She named herself, so on that.
She is officially ours and officially a Simmons.
So good and so worth it.
Yes,
Absolutely.
it was worth all the sleepless nights, all the emotional roller coasters.
So tell me this, I was there in the courtroom that day, and from what I remember, it was totally full. And what was it like to have so many people from your family, friends, church, members and so forth that were with you along the way? How was that really helpful to have that type of support?
That was, we felt like we were backed by everyone. We couldn't, nothing could stop us at that moment, having everybody around us. That was from the attorneys. What did he tell us? That was the most people he's ever seen.
And this hundreds of, cases.
I think like 6,400 cases. So that was
it's
really good.
Almost something we can't even put into words.
Y'all give it up for them. Okay. Now that was incredible, right? Heather and Brian were so gracious to allow us into their homes, and to Mila to be able to talk with them. And so their families just like that, who are in our church, who over the years have heard messages like you're about to hear today, and videos like you just heard, and you begin to say, well, I don't know, man, that grabbed the heart. But at the same time, I don't know about me. And the answer is, or better yet, the question, I guess, why not? I think you heard their story. If you see us, we're always going. That preceded Mila. Now Mila has joined the family. She's a Simmons. Their life, if you had to ask, is it the same as before? No, it's fuller, right? More joy, more action, more interaction. And so when we look today at Ruth chapter 4, verse 13 through 22, you're probably going to be asking the question, how in the world does Ruth have something to do with Orphan Sunday? And my hope and my joy in the next few minutes is going to be able to show you that Ruth, as an overall picture, is about God's care. God cares, okay? Now again, if God is our Heavenly Father as followers of Jesus Christ, then whatever our Father cares about, whatever Jesus cares about, whatever the Holy Spirit cares about, that is also to be our care, our concern here in this life. God provides, and God uses people just like us to do that, and God has His people. He has His people here, as we talked about in our large group huddle this morning, before all of the people who are serving went out to begin to do their thing. We are the light of the world, right? We are the salt of the earth. Like, God has called us to be the difference in this world. Ruth chapter 4, verse 13 says this. So Boaz took Ruth, and she became his wife. And he went into her, and the Lord gave her conception, and she bore a son. Then the women said to Naomi, Blessed be the Lord, who has not left you this day without a redeemer. May his name be renowned in Israel. He shall be a restorer of life and a nourisher of your old age. For your daughter-in-law who loves you, who is more to you than 7 sons, has given birth to him. Then Naomi took the child and laid him on her lap and became his nurse. And the women of the neighborhood gave him a name, saying, A son has been born to Naomi. And they named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. Now these are the generations of Perez. Perez fathered Hezron, and Hezron fathered Ram, and Ram fathered Amminadab, and Amminadab fathered Nahshon, and Nahshon fathered Salmon, and Salmon fathered Boaz, and Boaz fathered Obed, and Obed fathered Jesse, and Jesse fathered David. And that is the word of the Lord this morning. And you're like, how in the world does that have anything to do with this? And it's all about God's providence. It's all about God's providence in Naomi's life. It's all about God's providence in Ruth's life. It's all about God's providence in Boaz's life. It's all about God's providence in Mila's life, in Jay's life, in Beckham's life, and all kinds of children who are in our church. Even as JD was mentioning, in JD's life. It's God's providence that he would see to it, that he would provide for his people and make a way and use people just like me and you. The journey of Ruth is what? A lot of times we want to believe the journey as followers of Jesus, and maybe when we were confused or just didn't know any better, we're like, it's going to be straight, it's going to be a little bit difficult, but it's going to be pretty easy overall as long as you do the right things. But the journey, as we find out as followers of Jesus, is there's lots of ups, downs, valleys, maybe even some lower valleys when you thought you were already in the valley, mountaintops, peaks, sunsets, gloomy days, rains, storms, and all the rest. Setbacks and advances. But the truth of Ruth and for Christians today is this: the best truly is yet to come. Because of what Jesus has done on the cross, and because Jesus rose from the dead on the third day, because the resurrection is not only for him, but rather for all those who believe in his name, the best truly is yet to come, and God declares that to be so. As we look at the chapter 4 of Ruth, what do we find last week is that Boaz was all about taking care of business. He went to the gate where we said that's where decisions were going to be made. He found the kinsman redeemer who was closer than he was. He grabbed 10 elders, laid out the information, at least part of the information, right? Y'all remember that. And the kinsman redeemer said, I'm going to gain land. This is going to be monetarily a great decision for me. And he says, but on the day that you buy the land, you also purchase Ruth to be your wife, and you're going to have descendants through her for Elimelech. As soon as he said that was going to cost him, immediately he said, I cannot do it. His name, as we talked about last week, is unnamed. In all of Scripture, throughout all of history, his name we do not know, which was intentionally left off so that what? He was unwilling to pay the price, for he saw that the cost was too high. But what did Boaz do? Boaz saw the worth in Ruth. Boaz saw that it was key on these words. This is Orphan Sunday. This is Ruth. Boaz knew it was right. In spite of the cost, he knew it was right. He knew it was just. And he knew it was also what? Generous. His generosity was not something brand new. Remember the gleaning of the fields, chapter 2? That is something Boaz was already doing. It didn't just all of a sudden wake up one day and say, you know what? This is just, I'm going to start being a generous person. No. He was being a generous person, progressively making decisions that led towards generosity. He wasn't hoping and wishing. He wasn't contemplative on that. He was rather contemplative on how could I be more generous because I'm already being generous. And we see God making provision not only for Ruth and Naomi, but also for Boaz. And notice what it says in verse 13. Hopefully your Bible's still open. It says that the Lord gave her the ability to conceive. Chapter 1, she was married for 10 years and had no children. 10 years. They were trying to have children. That, again, we talk about it throughout this series. Children were a heritage from the Lord. They were more important then than they even are today, and they were trying to have as many as they could. So you got to understand, over 10 years and no children, something's going on there, and that's why in verse 13 of chapter 4 it says, and the Lord gave. The Lord is the giver. The Lord is the one who made it possible, and she conceived, and she had a child, and they named him what? Obed. And you're like, Obed doesn't mean anything to me unless you are reading the Bible, which means Obed is the grandfather of David. Ruth, who was a Moabite, an outcast, disenfranchised, nobody wanted anything to do with her until she came and until he took notice of her. Her name will be forever remembered because she was one of the faithful, and she's in the genealogy of what? Matthew 1, Jesus. Her name is tied to Jesus. We talked about that last week. Where is your name written? Who is your name truly tied to? Who are you living for? Number one this morning, if we're taking down notes, and I encourage you to do so, is God cares for everyone. This is what you're finding throughout the book of Ruth. This is what you're finding on Orphan Sunday. God does not care just for those who it appears like you got your life together. God does not care for those just who have enough money to get by or they have education or whatever. Like, God cares for all of his creation. Throughout the book of Ruth, we've seen that she and Naomi have been provided for by the Lord. We've seen that she's not highly looked upon, right? Ever since chapter 2 started, she's what? Ruth the Moabite. We've talked about the fact that Moabites were not favored people by the people of Israel because of their past. They were not highly looked upon. We also talked about the fact that they were widows. Widows did not have any social safety net back then. If you didn't have family, which her husband and her 2 sons had died, she was a widow in a foreign land and comes back. And here's the crazy part. Not only was Naomi old, which means she wasn't going to marry, she was just going to have to eke by, but Ruth, who was young and widowed, rather than staying in Moab, risked everything because she did what? Because she loved Naomi. She risked her future. Remember chapter 1, verse 16 and 17. Your people, my people. Your God is my God. Everything. She gave it all, turned her back on her past. And it looks a whole lot like following Jesus, does it not? You are my God. I will worship you and you alone. Your way is the right way. Your kingdom is the only kingdom. It will no longer be my kingdom. It will no longer be me choosing what I want, but rather, what do you want from me? The point of the matter is God cares for everyone. I want you to think about Jesus for a moment. We'll take it into the New Testament. Who did Jesus welcome? Was it only the Pharisees who, on the external, looked like they had it all together? And the answer was he had the most trouble with the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and the rulers. Like, that's the people he had the most problems with because they were arrogant, self-righteous, and they had a facade of religion, but they didn't have a heart for God. The people that he welcomed were the humble, the contrite, the broken. He welcomed the sinners. He didn't leave them in a sinful state. Rather, he said, go and sin no more. But he welcomed the lepers who everyone said, don't come near me. Don't touch me lest I get contaminated as well. He welcomed them. He welcomed the hurt, the lame, the blind. He welcomed all the people, including, in one scenario, a woman who was a woman, as it said, of the town, which means she was a prostitute by occupation, who would not stop drenching his feet with her tears, kissing his feet with her lips, and washing his feet with her hair. In one scene where a Pharisee says, if he only knew what kind of woman she was, and yet Jesus said, I've come to seek and to save the lost. I've come to heal those who are sick. Only those who know that they're sick are the ones who come to a physician. The opening of his ministry in Luke chapter 4, verse 18 and 19 says this, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me. He's reading out of Isaiah 61, because he has anointed me to proclaim good news to the poor. Good news to the poor. He has sent me to proclaim liberty to the captives, recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty those who are oppressed, to proclaim the year of the Lord's favor. God cares for the widow, the orphan, the disenfranchised. He cares for kids that, if honestly we just started throwing out numbers, are just statistics. But every single one of those numbers that make up these statistics are image bearers. That they didn't choose the situation that they were born into. They have no control over that. They don't have any power. They're the powerless, okay? Remember, I know that we give nods to it. What does he say? Micah 6:8. You know what to do. Do justice. It looks different for each of us, but nonetheless, do justice. Psalm 68:5. You want to know the heart of the Lord? You want to get an idea for that? Father to the fatherless and protector of widows is God in his holy habitation. If God cares for the vulnerable, what should we do? What should we do? Not only what should we care for, but what should we do? And this hits close to home for me. Actually, it hits directly at home for me. On one side with sadness and on the other side with great joy, my favorite 4-year-old in all the world is Beckham. Beckham Tyler Burford. We adopted him a few years ago, and man, he is absolute joy. Full, and I mean full of energy. At around 8:30, 9 o'clock, I'm like, son, you got to calm down. It's about time to go to bed. I mean, he's just going 92, nothing. I mean, his first wrestling match was yesterday, multiple, and it was awesome to watch him go at it because, man, like, it's just amazing to see him, not only the love that he has for our family, not only the love that my children and the joy when they heard that we're going to have a baby come into our home. This is way before we ever knew we were going to adopt him. This is just fostering, right? Like, to see their joy in the way that they love him then, but even more so now, to see the way that Erica and he relate, and in particular, the way that he relates to me, that he needed a father in his life, to see him thrive, like, not just get by, but to see him thrive in school, in life, and as we're raising him up as best we can in the Lord, like, I'd never trade it for anything. Take everything that we got and everything that we may have in the future. I'd never trade it for anything. But I would never have experienced that if we simply would not have, one, said yes. Yes in the beginning to training, house studies, all the rest, and then a phone call, which began with, we have a newborn baby, and mom has everything that you can possibly imagine when it comes to diseases. Will you take him? Will you take him into your home? And I mean, over here, like, y'all know this story. We said yes, but I cannot imagine my life. I cannot imagine my life in any form or fashion other than what it is today. And I wouldn't want it any other way. Beckham is he's our son. He's a part of our story. And he's a part of many of your stories too, because you've equally welcomed and loved him as well. We are called to do what we can. And here's the deal. What we can do and what we think we can do is typically light years apart. Our mind shuts off long before our abilities and capabilities. Like, we do this all the time. Well, I don't know. Your situation's different. I'm not saying anything, but I would beg to differ for you to say you're so much busier than probably a lot of what we do in our own lives. But the point of the matter is, it's what do we prioritize? What are we about? Like, what are we seeking to do? Because if you're seeking to make your life comfortable and easy, then you should not even remotely think about fostering. If, like, that's your ultimate goal, that's a horrible life to live, even if that's your own goal, but I'm just saying, like, that's not a great life. But rather to take a life that is worth looking back and being like, man, we sacrificed, we opened our hearts, we opened our lives, and we also cried tears that otherwise wouldn't have been cried, but it's only because we loved. It's only because we opened our home and opened our life to people who needed it, to children who needed it. Proverbs 31, verse 8 and 9 in your worship guide, it says this: open your mouth for the mute, for the rights of all who are destitute. Open your mouth, judge righteously, defend the rights of the poor. James 1:27, religion that is pure and undefiled before God the Father is this. You want to hear what's true religion? What's real religion? To visit the orphans and widows in their affliction, and to keep oneself unstained from the world. What does that also look like? Let's simplify it. Live a holy life, unstained from the world. Holy life. No matter your surroundings, no matter the peer pressure, live a holy life. Visit. Well, I checked it off my list. I visited. No, not visit. Meet the need. That's what it means by say visit. Meet the need. And again, we're all at different places, but the point of the matter is, every one of us can do something. Every one of us can do something. Every one of us can do something. Genuine faith reflects true religion. Secondly is, the provision of God is beautifully displayed in the generosity of his people. Secondly, the provision of God is beautifully displayed, not just partially displayed, it's beautifully displayed in the lives of his people. The way that Ruth faithfully loved Naomi is undeniable. Her love was what? Sacrificial? It's self-evident. There's no conclusion at the end of reading the book of Ruth that Ruth did not absolutely love Naomi. Her actions declare it to be so. Look at Boaz, the way that he was sacrificial and faithful. I mean, there's no way you walk away from the book of Ruth and say, wow, Boaz, he really was only partial. No, he was full, all in, willing to sacrifice, willing to give. His generosity was shown from his daily provision and gleaning, his monumental act of redeeming and then marrying Ruth. What does our lives show and tell about us? Y'all remember that when you were younger? I don't even know if schools do this anymore. I think they may still kind of do it. But back in the day, like in kindergarten and for sure first grade, you could do what? Show and tell. Show and tell, everyone got to bring, at least a different week, you got to bring something really neat, something really cool. And then you got to tell them all about it. Show it to them, tell them about it. What is your own life? Every day you're writing your story. Every single one of you right now, you got a book going. You might not be writing with ink and you might not be typing it out and it might not be on a Google Doc, but every single one of us, we are writing a story. Some of our stories are just starting. Some of them are midway through. Some of them are closer to the end than we even realize right now. And the question is like, what is your story? Like, what are you leaving? What is the heritage that you're leaving? Better yet, what do you want to leave? What do you want to be known as and known by? What does your life say about you? I hope it says something like Paul. Paul was radical, but we are to be of similar nature. He says what? 1 Corinthians 11:1, be imitators of me as I imitate Christ. How many of us in here this morning be like, yeah, with all humility, I'm telling people, be imitators of me as I imitate Jesus. Like, I want you to look at my life and I want you to follow the things that I'm doing because I'm following Jesus. I do mess up, but I'm following Jesus. Imitate me. And the problem with a lot of us is we're just like, no, I'd never say that. That's just arrogant. That's like, no. I said with a humble heart. How many of us, and a lot of us would say, well, I don't, And a lot of us simply will never even get remotely close to that place because we would much rather prefer the peripheral of Christianity in the sense that, yeah, we show up, we read the Bible here and there, but don't look to me. Paul didn't say that just once. He said it multiple times. We're even told in Ephesians chapter 5:1 that we are to be imitators of our Father who is in heaven. You know, hopefully we're able to say with Paul, imitate me, but if our life, for instance, doesn't look like something we want, it doesn't have to stay there. You can't change your past. I can't change my past. There's a lot I'd love to change about my past, but I can't do that, but I can learn from it, and I can make a decision today. And the beautiful part is I don't know how many tomorrows I get, but I can also make decisions, hopefully for the better, each and every single tomorrow. In your worship guide as well, 1 John 3:16-18 says this, by this we know love. In case you ever needed a definition, like a working, concrete definition, and you're a little bit fuzzy on what is biblical love, by this we know love, that he, Jesus, laid down his life for us, and we ought to lay down our lives for the brothers. Sacrifice anything, everything on behalf of others. But if anyone has the world's goods and sees his brother in need, yet closes his heart against him, how does God's love abide in him? Little children, let us not love in word or talk, but in deed and in truth. The idea to do good, I agree with it. Do justice. Don't just agree with the idea to do good, do good. Well, I don't know where to begin. Why do you think we kick off right here? Small thing. It's small. Small thing. Why do you think we have the table waiting for you with people who are already pouring out their lives in this direction and are just simply saying, ask me a question. Just ask a question. Get started there. Did you notice what she said in the video? She said, I started by listening multiple years, feeling conviction. At a certain point, I was just like, man, I can't sleep at night. She called someone in our church and said, hey, how do I get started? Because she knew that person already was in that process and knew. If you look around the room today, there's quite a few families in here could easily say, this is how you get started. It starts with a phone call. It starts with an open heart. It starts with action. You see, he says that the way that we love others is a reflection of our love for Jesus. How do we measure up? That's really what those verses say. Like, our love for others is a reflection of our love for Jesus. If you go 2 chapters ahead in 1 John chapter 5, verse 20 and 21, he says, you cannot love God who you do not see if you do not love your brothers who you do see. That's pretty convicting. How can you love a God that you do not see if you're constantly hating and disliking and bitter against those that you do see? Our word should only be an echo, truly, to our actions. It should be an echo to our actions. Just as Boaz knew what to do today, I think it's very easy to say that we know what to do, at least in idea. Maybe not in specifics, but at least in idea. Some of you are sitting here and you're like, man, I've heard messages similar to this, and it's now 52 weeks later, and I'm sitting in here this morning. I have not taken any action, and I will not allow 2025 to be 52 more weeks to where I don't take action on what can I do to be helpful. What can I do to open my life? What can I do to be generous, to be gracious? Look in your worship guide again, 2 Corinthians 9, 6 through 8. The point is this. You want to get to the purpose, the point? The point is this. Whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly. Whoever sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. Each one of you must give as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion, for God loves a cheerful giver. And God is able, notice, to make all grace abound to you, so that having all sufficiency in all things at all times, you may be able to abound. You may abound in every good work. Like the provision and the finances and like the life that you live, like it's not just for us. And to be very honest with you, if some of you are in a funk, right? Some of you are just despondent and some of you are in just a negative, just overflow. To be very honest with you, a lot has to do with just how generous are we just period, like with our lives, with our time, with our money, like period. Like what does that look like? Because if you want to have more joy in your life, be a generous person. Just flat out open your lives to others. Notice what he says here. Sow sparingly does what? Plant less seeds, expect smaller harvest. Plant more seeds, expect a bigger harvest. Like, simple math. But God says here, and God is able, verse 8, to make all grace abound to you, so that having all sufficiency in all things at all times you may abound. What? What's the point of it? Do a lot of good. In this case, specifically for those who cannot do it on their own, who cannot speak up for themselves, who are living in conditions that are absolutely gut-wrenching, not just heartbreaking. Heartbreaking is one thing, gut-wrenching is another. Speak up and do something, because you can do it. Some of us sitting in here this morning, but what if we're not naturally generous people? Welcome to the party. Honestly, we're going to hold back the amens, but I'll go ahead and say it right here. We should be saying amen. What if we're not naturally generous people? Welcome to the party of the sinful nature inside of me and the sinful nature inside of each and every single one of us, who even when we have the ability to help, we love to hoard. Say it again. Even when we have the ability to help, our natural tendency is to hoard. If I were to ask the question, and I won't, how many of our attics are full of stuff that you don't even know what they are, but yet they are sentimental to you, and you're never going to look at them again until someone passes away, and then you'll go through them once, you'll say, who wants these pictures? And then you're going to be done with it. That is our lives, filled up with not junk, I don't want to offend anybody, but just stuff. Expend your life on others, and you'll never regret a single day of it. How do we become more generous? It starts by acting in generosity. We're not waiting for the feeling. If you're waiting for the feeling to become generous, you will never give. You'll never give of yourself, never give of money. You'll just never do it. If you're waiting for a feeling, like feelings are intended to be passengers in your life. They make horrible drivers. If your life is dictated by your feelings, you are always going to be like trains, planes, and automobiles flying off the road, okay, and off the rails, right? Some of y'all are too young to see that, and that means I'm getting old. All right. The point of the matter is, actions lead to feelings. And so even this morning, when some of you are like, I just don't know, start with a faith. Take a step. Therefore, lastly, you are called to make a difference. Every single one of us is called to make a difference. In each of our own unique ways, we get the opportunity to act as Boaz did, faithfully, just, kind, and generous. Notice how Boaz did. We're going to take Ruth's name out of here, but Boaz did what? He took notice. Here we are this morning. Everybody's on notice. Everybody. It's not a single person who's here or maybe watching online. Everybody's taking notice. He inquired. Tell me more. He investigated. Tell me about her situation. He encouraged, spoke kindly, said, I'll protect you. Don't go anywhere else. He provided and then sacrificially gave in the end. How can I be like Boaz? How can we do it? How do we take the principle of how Boaz was and then apply it to our own lives today, crossing well over 2,000 years in the process? Well, today, or at least in 2022, in the United States alone, there were 368,500 children in foster care. And in 2023, there was only 200,000 foster families. There's some discrepancy there, correct? Louisiana, on average, has 4,100 children in foster care each day, on a given day. Shreveport has 400 children in foster care with only 200 foster families. I'm not up on the exact number in DeSoto Parish, but I want to say it was somewhere around, teetering around that 40 number of children in our own area right now. Maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less, but somewhere around that number of children here, and yet we only have a few homes that are actually open and fostering. They've been trained and they're able to foster, and their homes are available, right? Just because you have been trained and because you were fostering previously doesn't mean you always continue that process. There's got to be new people doing it, right? So for us as Christians, we look for reasons and ways to help. We don't look for reasons and ways to make excuses. Like that is not what a follower of Jesus does. And so I don't want to sugarcoat anything. They said it on the video, even though they were smiling and laughing, looking back. Yes, there is a cost to it, but it's worth it. Sleepless nights in the case of a young one, absolutely. Raising up a child, any child that you have is going to be difficult, but can you imagine a child coming out of a difficult situation? It's not going to be immediate. Yeah, it's going to be a sacrifice. But you'll never regret a day of it. Never regret a day of it. I even have this thought when I was thinking through these things. If you asked Heather and Brian, was it worth it? What do you think they'll say? Absolutely. Ask Jeremy and Aaron, you ask myself and Erica, is it worth it? And you're like, absolutely. Absolutely. Ask Boaz. From eternity's perspective, was it worth it? Absolutely. Titus 3:14, let our people learn to devote themselves to good works. Let our people learn. Here's what? Learn. That means it's going to take some practice. That means it's going to take you stepping out some so that you get to that place. It means that if you're not naturally generous, well, guess what? None of us are. That's why we do acts of generosity, to continue to train our hearts to think on things above, not just things here on this earth. Let our people devote themselves to good works so that they can help cases of urgent need and not be unfruitful. Again, it says, as Trent comes up, Galatians 6:9-10, let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap, if we do not give up. So then, as we have opportunity, let us do good to everyone, and especially to those who are of the household of faith. What will we do? What can you do? And the answer is you cannot do everything. So please don't use that. I feel so overwhelmed. I can't do anything. I'll give you a hug after the service. I know that people really do go through those things, and so I'm sorry I don't understand them, but I'm just saying, please stop doing that. No one's asking you to do everything at all. Not even remotely. something. And it's not coming just from me. Like, we only hit a few scriptures. From the start to the finish, like, that's the heart of God. We're going to close right here with a song, which we haven't normally done this in a little while. And I'm honestly going to encourage you just to soak it in. There are going to be lyrics on the screen, but just listen to the lyrics. And I'll close the service right after that with reminding you, here's a few things you can do. And then from there, we say goodbye. It'll be up to you from that point as to what you will do.